Today's interview is with Neil Schoepp. Neil's a former New York police officer who then turned to real estate. He started out with single family, ended up in multifamily. A familiar story that we've heard many times before, but he talks about a lot of different things in today's interview that's really interesting. One of which is how he went on vacation, and when he came home, he knew that he had retired, and he talked about what triggered this, what caused this to happen, how he makes it happen. Really cool interview with a really interesting and fun guy. Really enjoyed today's interview with Neil. As always, like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate, the YouTube channel. Go to the WWRE podcast and give me a 5-star rating and write me a review. A good one, of course, if you think it's worthy. I'm looking to meet as many people as I can. I'm looking to connect with as many of you as possible. Anyone who's interested in real estate, wants to talk about real estate, I would love to talk to you, get to know you, maybe help you out, whatever it is. I'm offering that to anyone who's interested. There's going to be a link in the description below, and if you go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com, there's going to be a sign-up page there as well. So enjoy today's interview with Neil. I think you'll like it.
Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we have Neil with us. Hey Neil, how you doing?
I'm well, Barry. How you been?
I'm fantastic. I'm excited to jump onto this call and get talking with you. We were talking beforehand, and I said we better get recording because we're sharing some nuggets here, so we better get that on the recorded version. So do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what you kind of currently focus on?
Sure. I am retired from the city of New York. I was a police officer and a fireman for 24 years. I actually took my father's advice, and my father said to me, go to work for the city and you'll never become rich, but you'll always be able to take care of your family, right? And that's what I did. I went to work for the city, and I was always able to kind of scrape by. I was always able to provide for them, roof over their head and health insurance and things like that. But I could never like push it that little bit further. I was always worried, like paycheck to paycheck. And I then found real estate. I found real estate through the Wheelbarrow Profits program, and Gino Barbara kind of took me under his wing. He kind of explained how things work in the real estate world, and I went that route. I came from single families. I still actually have, I just liquidated my last single family. I still have one duplex left, and that's cash flowing. And I actually today, with a couple of partners, I just closed on 43 units in York, Pennsylvania. So in a nutshell, that's really what it is. I was a W-2 guy. Literally, I went on vacation March 1st, and on March 3rd, I said I'm retiring.
Wow.
And it was really that quick. I kind of had enough of just living that limited lifestyle.
So I imagine you'd had enough for a while, right, of living that lifestyle, right? I can completely see that. A lot of people, we're taught when we're younger that job security and benefits and stuff like that, right? That's the way to go, right? The reliable and trustworthy path, right? And, so many of us go down the right. You just want a job, and you want to, you don't, that's the best you can wish for, right? So many times, just have a job that consistently pays you, that you're going to have maybe an early retirement and all this and that. But I'm guessing, and you talked about it there, that you wanted more. You didn't like living paycheck to paycheck. You had a ceiling as to what you could achieve. I imagine you've been feeling like that for a while. What triggered that? Like you said, March 1st, you went on vacation. March 3rd, you said I'm retiring. What triggered that?
It was a number of things, Barry. One thing was every time, now when I was in the fire department, we'd work 24-hour shifts. So I was gone roughly 30 hours at a clip. And every time I left, my son would be like, Dad, please don't leave. We'd be like shooting baskets, or we'd be watching TV or something. And he would just be like, he never wanted me to leave. He was always kind of apprehensive when I left the house. And that kind of, in the back of my mind, that started playing on me. Is he trying, like, is the universe trying to tell me something because of my profession? The other thing that really pushed me out was I retired. I left back during Ebola. And I had a near miss with Ebola. And I sent one of my guys home. We ended up going on a medical call that was to a shelter. The guy ended up just coming into the country from Nigeria, which is one of the hot spots for Ebola. And one of the guys on my crew that I sent home to his family had a newborn kid. And I had to call him up at midnight and tell him, listen, this is the deal. I just got a call from EMS, and they told me that that guy we were working on came from Nigeria, and we're now taking precautions against a possible exposure to Ebola. And I kind of sat down and thought about it, and I said, like, is all of this worth it? And it wasn't. To me, it wasn't. And that kind of threw the light switch of, there's bigger and better things out there, and I have to go and do them. And I kind of knew about real estate then, but that's when I had one vacation house that I ended up turning that vacation house into a rental, and that was kind of the launch and off point. And from single family, I moved into multifamily.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's funny how these things, you know, they trigger us, and they'll make us change direction. You don't see it coming, maybe, right? You know, like that one situation, you probably never saw it coming, but it changed the direction of your life, maybe.
Barry, I was set to stay 30 years, and I left in 24. So I left 6 years early on what my plan was. And I kind of learned, what I learned from that was you can have a plan, right? And you got to be able to pivot. Like, things are going to happen, and you could either be a deer in headlights, or you can just pivot and go in a different direction. And that brings us another great pivot was the preschool, right? We were talking prior to recording. I own a preschool. My preschool ended up getting shut down for 3 months because of this coronavirus. Now, I can either stand there in a deer in headlights and throw my hands up and close my business, or I can pivot and start doing other things. And I started doing other things. I started making plans for how I was going to run the business when we came out of COVID. And the business right next door to me closed, and I ended up taking over their spot. So I took over 2,500 more square feet right in the middle of COVID. And I'm expanding my business. And that just comes from, well, I got to pivot. I got to make something happen. Because if I stand here, I'm going to get ran over. Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. What, you know, you say it's one thing to pivot, right, and say that you've got to do that, but how were you able to mentally, you know, feel comfortable in taking that? Because at that point, right, mid pandemic, everyone is scared for their lives, right? Most people they want to hunker down. They don't want to do anything. If anything, they want to go the opposite route of investing, right? Maybe they want to sell their stuff. They want to get out of investing, right? You're going the other way. You're running head on into everything. You're like, okay, I'll take down this property. I'm not scared, right? What gave you that confidence, and how did you go about that?
I was scared. let's just throw that out there. Let's just throw that out there right now, right? But the way I kind of push through is Napoleon Hill has a quote that says something, I'm paraphrasing here, but in every catastrophe, there's opportunity, or there's bigger and better opportunity on the other side. And that's really what I was focusing on. I was focusing on, I was in New York City. I was under the Trade Center when it came down. The ground rumbled under my feet. And I thought the world was coming to an end then, right? We all did. Mm-hmm. Like, what the hell's going on? But we made it through that. We made it through the housing crash in 2008. Like, we made it through that. Lots of people lost their jobs. The economy took a big hit, but we made it through it. We're going to make it through this also. It's just a matter of time. Where, if you look at the country right now, we're doing this the beginning of September. The virus hit in March. Just the sentiment between March and now, everybody's looking at it differently, right? We're not all as panicked. We're not all hunkered down. So it goes along with that, like, this too shall pass. Mm-hmm. And you just got to keep focus on what your goal is.
Yeah. And if you have a goal and you have you know why you're doing something, right? You know, you're determined to do something, you know, it's gonna take you there, right? If you don't have that why and you don't have that goals and you don't understand why you're investing and what you're investing in, then it's easy to fall off and to do something else or to give up, right? But if you have that and you're determined and you know that you're going to do it and you have that belief, you can push through even the hardest of times.
And one of it's about adding value. I'm glad you said that, because part of my thought process back then, how I pushed through that fear, was we envisioned, and this is going back a few months, so we didn't know exactly what September was going to look like, the new school year, because I deal with school kids. We didn't know what the school year was going to look like. So back then, we were planning for, all right, the schools aren't going to open up. The schools aren't going to let kids go back full time, right? They're going to do maybe a hybrid of, you go back 2 or 3 days and you're home 2 or 3 days. So we looked at that and we said, well, what are the parents going to do? Because the parents still have to work. And if their kids can't be at school, they're going to need somewhere to send their kids that's a safe environment. And that was a large factor in the decision making of pushing through that fear, because we knew that on the other end, we were going to be able to help so many more people with that extra square footage.
Yeah, very cool. Now just backtracking a little bit, I let's talk about that deal a little bit after, but I want to go back to something you said earlier when you decided that you wanted to leave, right? And we talked about the trigger, what caused that trigger. But when you decide that you're going to leave and you're going to do something else, right? There's so many other stuff that you could have done, right? You could have started your own business, started on, I don't know, like Gino, like a restaurant, right? Or something, or you could have you could have gone into stocks or Bitcoin or anything like that. What attracted you to real estate?
Control.
Okay.
100%, it's about control. I could take $100,000 and I can buy stock, right? I can give it to my stockbroker, or I can buy the stock myself. But I still don't have that control, right? Because what happens when McDonald's has a bad batch of beef, or Taco Bell has a bad batch of beef, right? Their stock plummets, my net worth plummets. We'll change that to now real estate. I control that property. I control the management of that property. I control very largely the income stream that property is generating, right? Because I'm at the helm. I'm kind of like the hedge fund manager at that point, or the CEO of McDonald's. So there's not too many outside forces that are going to hit us, that are going to hurt us. And it hasn't been proven as much as it has been these last 3 months, right? Nobody could predict Corona, but my collections hasn't gone down. A couple of people are a little bit later, but the collections aren't going down. Like I'm still, but my income stream's still there. And you don't have that control back in March. Back in March, my IRA took a 30% hit, right? Everybody's like the market took a close to a 30% hit. And now it came back, but I don't have control over those stocks. I have control over the property.
Yeah, I talk about that all the time. That's what I love about real estate as well. If you do the right things with the property, right, you buy it right, you know, you manage it right, you do the right renovations, you do the right tenant screening, right, you buy it in the right location, you're going to be, there's very good chance that you're going to be successful. And the great thing as well is that you can then pivot, right? Like you said, with these things, if your stock, whatever stock it is, if it's McDonald's and they have bad meat, or if it's Tesla and Elon Musk spoke to Blunt and the Joe Rogan show, right? You have no control. You picked what you thought was a good stock. But if you have, say, a vacation rental, right? You invest in a vacation rental, and now that goes south, right? Doesn't work. But you can turn that into maybe student housing, or you can turn it into a regular rental, or you can do it as a corporate rental, right? You have options to pivot, and you have that control, right? If a stock goes bad, there's nothing you can do about it. Sell it. That's probably, all you can do, right? You should never sell it when it goes down, right? That's what they say. So, but with real estate, you have that, and especially with multifamily, right? As you know, if you control the NOI and you increase the NOI, it doesn't matter what's going on around you to some extent, right? The few properties down the street, right? It doesn't matter what the rents are there or what that's sold for. If you increase the NOI, you can increase the value of your property, right? And you're in complete control of that.
You're in complete control of your NOI. The buck stops with you. So yes, you increase that NOI, you increase the value of the property. Going even deeper than that is, and you touched upon it, proper tenant screening. So have a proper tenant, screen your tenants properly, but also diversify your tenants properly also. And what I mean by that is, am I going to have a complex that has just restaurant workers? We'll use restaurant workers because those are the guys that get hit the hardest, right? Or am I going to have restaurant, office, factory? Maybe I have some nurses, some doctors, some residents. I can kind of attract the type of tenant that I want on my property. And I can do that through color schemes. I can do that through landscaping, the upkeep of the property, how the property presents itself. So there's other ways of having, when I say control over my destiny, I'm talking about not just the NOI, but what goes into creating that NOI. And it's not just about cutting expenses or increasing income.
Yeah, so true, so true. It's your property at the end of the day, right? You can do what you want with it. So then you're transitioning into real estate. What was your first property? What was your first investment property that you bought?
I actually, I stumbled into real estate. Like a lot of people, I had a vacation rental that I had to do something with, right? It was a vacation rental turned into a primary residence, and then I brought another primary residence. So I had that initial primary residence. What am I going to do with it? I could either sell it, like most people. I decided to rent it. I broke the cardinal sin. I rented it to a friend, right? A friend needed a place. I rented it to a friend instead of selling it. And it actually turned out all right that I rented it to a friend, but you got to be careful. Like I kind of got lucky. I don't I don't suggest renting to friends, honestly. But I kind of fell into real estate that way. And then from there, I'm like, you know what? This is cash flowing. I brought a couple of more. I brought a duplex. And then I see the duplex, and the duplex is doing better than the single families. And the duplex is showing me that if I'm down one tenant, I'm only 50% vacant. And my duplex is set up where I basically, one unit is my nut and the other unit's my cash flow. Close to it. So why would I have a single family? And that duplex then got me thinking, and I'm like, I gotta like make this bigger. How do I make it bigger? And that led me to apartments. And the apartments led me to Jake and Gino, and that was just my complete launching pad.
I want to go back a little bit on something you said, right? I thought you were going to give us a horror story there when you when you said I put my friend, because a lot of times that's what happens, right? And you said don't rent to friends, and I would include family in that, right? Why? I know why, but do you want to tell people why you think they shouldn't rent to friends and family?
Well, I'm going to backstep that comment. You can rent to friends and family, but you almost have to be cold-hearted if you do. It's not the friends are a little bit easier because you can kick your friend out, but how are you going to evict your family when they decide not to pay? And don't think that they don't pay. Like, I've never experienced it, but I've had conversations with friends, guys that are in the business that have experienced it, and it's the worst thing in the world. You can't evict your sister. You can't evict your niece. When they come to you, and what are you supposed to do? So that's like, family's a big, at least for me, it's a big no-no. It's probably the only thing in real estate that has like truth behind it, because, and what I mean by that is, why don't you get into real estate, right? Toilets, tenants and toilets, right? There's ways around that, right? You have property managers, you have teams that go out and take care of the problems as they arise. Even evictions, like I don't want to evict anybody. There's processes for that. But how do you sit down at Thanksgiving Day dinner when you're the Scrooge that kicked out little Lily, and they don't understand that, well, if she doesn't pay me, I can't pay the mortgage. And if I can't pay the mortgage, I now have a foreclosure on my record. And that just wipes me out. I might, like, you can come back from that, but this is a business. This is my livelihood. It's not a side gig. It's not a hobby. This is what I do. If I walked into Uncle Joe's storefront and I just decided that, oh, you're my uncle, you have a grocery store, I can just come in here and take whatever food I want, you wouldn't allow me to do that, and I wouldn't expect to be able to do that. It's the same thing on the rental side. It's very difficult to deal with family when you can't evict them, right? Like, how do you evict your family? Like, I could evict a friend, but I couldn't evict my family.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate as well. So not only, so it can get really messy with family just because of family in general, right? But I think you touched upon something there, that people see landlords in a different light, right? They think, oh, you've got this investment property, you have tons of money, or you can afford to give me rent for free, right? You know, they don't think of the other side of it, that just as you pointed out, that we have a mortgage to pay, right? We're just like anyone else, right? You wouldn't expect someone who lives in a primary residence to go without paying their mortgage, right? It's the same with us. We have that burden, and we have other expenses. We have property managers. We have stuff to fix, right? Maintenance stuff, right? We have insurance to pay, right? We have the mortgage, as you mentioned. We have taxes. We have all this stuff to pay. Nobody's looking out for us. Nobody's going to go, hey, here's a handout for you. So I always think it's so unfair that the landlords get seen as the evil guy that's evicting people, right? Take right now, for example, there's all this movement against landlords, right? But, tenants are getting stimulus money, right? Other people are getting bailouts, but the landlords aren't, right? The landlords are people that, in Vegas now, they've just extended the eviction moratorium, right?
Yes.
Right? But if you have a 4-unit property here in Vegas and all 4 tenants aren't paying, what are you supposed to do? Your mortgage is still due, right? You can go for forbearance, but that's a whole nother trap in itself there, right? Forbearance isn't what you think it is, right? So why are we as landlords, when we're trying to, especially if you're a good landlord and you're doing it for the right reasons, you're trying to provide people for a nice place to live, right? And you're giving them, and you're always taking care of the tenants, right? Why are we the ones that are getting seen as the evil landlords that are just trying to milk people for their money, right? We're just trying to make a better life for ourselves. We've done stuff that other people won't do. We went out there and bought investment properties, risk our own capital, put in the work, right? Why are we the evil ones? And that always bothers me.
I think we're the evil ones because they need to blame someone. We talked about it off camera, right? We were talking about how I have friends that they don't have the same mindset. And we spoke about it. You don't want somebody to acknowledge. They can't acknowledge that what I do works, because then they would have to do it themselves. They wouldn't be able to complain about how life is so unfair and oh, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Well, you're living paycheck to paycheck. The brutal honest truth is, because that's what you choose to do, right? You are the captain of your ship. You can choose to take a different route. It's not always going to be easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying the choice is yours. And I think that it's exactly what you said. They think that we have all of this money because they see advertisements, right, with checks of $60,000 for closing on this house. Well, there was a lot that went into that. And yeah, I have that $60,000, but a lot of that is on the refi, right? They're working deals where they're getting money back, but it's money that's going back out to work. It's not money that's just sitting around. We just don't have all of this money. And people think that we do. And my multifamilies, they run at roughly 63 to 65% break even. So I need to have 65% of my people paying me, and all of that money is going out. So every 100,000, 65,000 is going out the door immediately. That other 40,000 has to go to work. It's not money that I just stick in my pocket and like I lived a good life.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's talk a little bit about your multifamily. What does your multifamily portfolio consist of?
I right now I have my duplex and the 43 I just closed on. That's what I presently have right now. The 43s with a few partners, and the duplex is on my own. So my foray into multifamily starts with that 43 units that we just closed on. And I want to throw one other thing out real quick while it's on my mind is partnerships. People are so, and this was me for so long. I was raised in New York City. I watched them play 3-card Monte on the corner. Everybody was out to get you, right? Like it's New York City. Everybody's out to get you. Everybody has a scam. Everybody has an angle. And now when you talk about partnerships are, oh, that guy's not really that nice. He's going to partner with me just to take advantage of me. And that's clearly not what partnerships are about. Partnerships take a while to build. You have to get to know the person. You have to talk to the person. You have to go out and do little projects with them, and really find out if you're a good fit. But once you find that partnership, it's amazing what you can do. So I was looking for multifamily for a while, and there was a piece that was missing. And then I got the mindset of proximity, being around the right people, and open to partnerships. I always wanted to do everything on my own because I didn't trust anybody. And the partnerships allowed me to partner with other individuals that had different skill sets, but they had the same values, so that everybody brings something different to the plate, but we still have the same values. My partners are going to work just as hard as I work. I know that because I've seen that, because I've been around them prior to entering into the partnership. So don't shy away from partnerships. I would run towards partnerships and get to know as many people as you can, and get to feel them out and find out how you can add value to them and they can add value to you. And this way you can go and you can take down a $5 million piece of property or a $10 million piece of property. If you're only doing it on your own, what are you gonna take down? Maybe $1 million, maybe $2 million, but you're not gonna be able to take down anything bigger than that on your own. Or it's gonna take you a lot longer to do.
Yeah, I was the same way. It wasn't a trust issue with me. I just wanted to do everything myself because I figured, well, I don't want to share the money. I could just take my money, the capital that I have, turn it into whatever I needed to turn, and then I can go from there, right? It's just like, I don't want to share.
That's a great point, right? Because everybody, that was me a few years ago, right? But make the pie bigger.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't want to share a fourplex with anybody, because there's not that much cash flow there, right? But if I can find somebody and we can get into a 12-plex, right, or a 20-plex, now we're talking about a little more cash flow. We do a nice small property. We take a 20-plex, right, 20 doors, and you buy that on a true value add, right? Whether that's low vacancy or it's true mom and pop, and you get to refi and roll that. That's the catalyst that you need. And if I do that with you, and that 20 doors goes really well, don't you think that we're going to end up going after 60, 70, 100? And that's the catalyst that you got to do. You got to be in it. You got to be looking, and you got to be open to communicating with people. Make the pie bigger. The pie is infinite. You can make it as big as you want. It's infinite.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, it's like you think 1 + 1 = 2, right? But actually 1 + 1 actually equals 5, right? You can get so much further with a partner than you would just by yourself, right? You know, like you said, that quad, right? You buy a quad with someone, right? You get 2 units each, but you'll probably get further than you'll buy that one, and then you'll go into something bigger. And it's partnership as such a great tool in this, because you can use someone else's strengths, you know, that might be your weaknesses, and they can use your strengths, that they might fill in their weaknesses. Maybe talk a little bit about. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to give you one more quick example of partnerships, and how it's helped me, because it's so important, Barry. I joined the mastermind the beginning of this year, and within that mastermind, I then formed a partnership, and that partnership, we produced a product, and we put that product out to the masses. Now, the key point of the partnership was, I'm an underwriting guy. That's kind of my niche. That's what I do. I don't do sales. I formed a partnership with a guy that does sales, right? So now I put the time in, me and another partner put the time in to build the product because we were the underwriters. And now the sales guy is going out and he's progressively and organically putting it out to the masses and doing the sales. If I tried doing sales, I'd fall flat on my face. It's just not my forte. And that's what partnerships do for you.
Yeah, it's such a great thing. Now, so you guys ended up buying a 43 unit, right? So, and you just closed today. Congratulations, by the way. That's
Thank
so
you.
cool to hear. I love that. I love that. Tell us a little bit about the deal. You know, obviously we still have the COVID going on. The pandemic is still going on. We're September 1st today, in case people are wondering when they watch this. You know, a lot of people, again, you know, they might say, well, you know, is there a crash coming? Is there going to be a downturn? Is tenants going to pay rent? Is there all this? How did you guys feel comfortable buying this property? And did you guys do anything different to pre-pandemic?
We screened it a little bit tighter. We underwrote it slightly different. So we stress tested a little bit more. When we looked at the property, we looked at the property from the perspective of what it was doing. It then entered the pandemic, what it's doing in the pandemic. And now I kind of consider this towards the end of the pandemic, meaning we're not finished. Like we're going to feel the ripples of this well into next year. But people kind of know that the virus is out there. They kind of go about their lives, how they're going about it. Like we're kind of set. We're in the middle stages of the pandemic. We're kind of set in how we're going about our daily lives. So things really aren't going to change too much from now until the end of the year. And it was the class of tenant. We have our class of tenant is engineers, lawyers, and accountants. So they're all class A. It's a very good class B, low class A property. So that gave us stability in the tenants didn't lose their employment. They never became unemployed. So the building has had perfect collections throughout. So that gave us a lot of confidence in moving forward. And then we decided that we were going to do certain things to do that value add. So that value add is we're going to convert the basement, right? We're going to put office space in place office space that's only there for the tenants to use. So if you're a doctor and you now have to do virtual meetings, you don't have to do them in your living room. You can rent a space in the basement of your building and you can just walk downstairs to your office and you can conduct your virtual meetings there or whatever you want to do. But it's just for the tenants of the building. It's not for outsiders to come in. So we're not doing kind of like that cross-contamination of outsiders coming into the property. And just looking at the property and making sure that the tenants were stable. That was our biggest concern, that income stream, making sure that the tenants were stable. So looking at the tenants, looking at the leases, doing background checks on the tenants, like delving into who the tenants are, where do they work, how far do they work from the property, things along those lines.
Yeah, that's great. That's definitely something I'm doing differently now, is looking at the tenant base, right? That's one of the first questions I ask a broker. What is the tenant base, right? Are they restaurant workers? Are they construction people? You know, those might be in a bit of bother, but if it's like you said, they're young professionals, people who can work from home, you know, they're lawyers, doctors, you know, or even just, you know, IT people, you know, they can be some kind of consultants.
Yes.
These are the type of people who can work from home. And that's something you've really got to take into consideration, because You know, I don't think the penny has fully dropped yet, right? I don't think things have gotten as bad as they might do yet, because stimulus money was propping up a lot of this stuff, right? Especially for the people, the restaurant workers and whatnot, right? Those service people. I think there might be some pain in that, but I love that you guys did that. You guys were looking at your tenant space, looking through the leases, finding out where they work, how far from work they work. And then I think that's amazing that you guys are providing them a workspace, right? It's two things, right? One, you're increasing you guys' revenue, right? Because you're charging. I believe you said that you guys are charging for that, so you're increasing. So it's you know, it's increasing the NOI, right? But not only that, you're providing a much needed service in a way for those people. You're making them happier tenants. You're giving them that space that they can work from, that they can get out of their apartments, so they're not maybe stuck in their apartments all day working, go downstairs and have that space where they're socially distanced from people, but they can still do their jobs. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I think that's so smart. I think that's one of the best things I've heard.
I think it's going to help with tenant retention also, because now they're not necessarily going to leave for a bigger place. Their home now is kind of tied to their business, because it's easy just to walk out of my apartment and walk downstairs, and now I'm in my office, and the office that you're being supplied is going to be a lot cheaper than if you were to go have a separate office somewhere. So we're looking at it as a value add on the income stream, as a value add to the tenants, and to limit our turnovers. Honestly, turnovers is one of the biggest expenses that we have, and we're trying to limit that as much as we can.
And I think
so we'll see if it works.
I think especially right now, tenant retention is key, because I think it might be harder. People don't want to move as much. They might be scared to move. You know, people might be downsizing. So if you can focus on that tenant retention, I think that's huge. And I think this is, I think this could be really interesting. I think this could be something that we see a lot in the future, right? They're turning clubhouses into gyms and building dog parks and stuff like that. But I can see people, you know, on these big apartment complexes, them focusing more on providing people with a place to work, right? That safe working environment. Yes. Because so many more people are going to be working from home. But if you have a 1-bedroom apartment or a 900 square feet 2-bedroom apartment, and your wife or your spouse or your kids are there as well, you might not want to be in that space all day, every day, right? You might want to go out into the basement, or go out to the clubhouse that's now been turned into a shared work space, you know, to do it. So I think that could be huge going forward. So that's so smart. I love that you guys did that. Now, can you tell us a little bit about the deal you guys have closed now? So how are you guys, you know, what did you guys buy? How you guys are funding it? Why you guys like the deal? What's the business plan?
We found it through a broker relation. So my partner is the one that actually found it. He saw it, and he kind of overlooked it because it was an A class, and he's usually in that high C, low B class is kind of his secret sauce. And the first time he saw it, he kind of just like looked over it, and then it came across his desk a second time, and his assistant said to him, he said, you know what, this actually looks like it might be a good deal. And they called the broker sent them the information. It turns out that the guy was doing a 1031 and he needed the cash. So we were actually able to buy it at a 7 cap. A 7 cap and probably a 6 1/4 cap market. 6 1/4 cap market. So there was built-in value add or equity right there for us. And we're looking to, through that value add of that extra office space, there's small rent bumps. They're $50, $75, nothing crazy as a percentage, because the rents there now are $1,200. So the rents are on the high side, $1,200 to $1,500. So we're looking to bump the rents a little bit, the office space, and do storage in the basement also. So we're going to split the basement into storage and office space, and that's going to bring the value up. We got in agency debt, 25 years, 4.1. It was the low fours, and we took the low fours for the security of being able, we have flexibility on the loan. So it's agency debt, and we have stepped down agency debt as opposed to a prepay penalty.
Mm-hmm.
So we paid a little bit more on the interest rate going in, but that gave us the flexibility to be able to sell whenever we want it. So step down, if you guys don't know what step down is out there, when you take agency debt, when you go to sell the property prior to the end of your term, the agency is going to charge you a penalty for paying that loan off early. So we did a step down program so that every year we know exactly what our penalty is going to be, or what we're going to have to pay back. And the longer we hold it out, the less our payment has to be. On the other side of the deal, if you take and you don't take that step down, right, you can get hit with a very large penalty for prepaying the loan. That's going to eat up all of that profit. So we decided, since we don't know exactly what the market's going to be, if the market's going to be 3 years or 5 years or 7 years, we have a 10-year term, and we have the flexibility to get out at 7 if the market changes and the property becomes that strong. We can also get out at 5 if we want, because when we underwrote the property, we underwrote with those step downs. So we're going to know exactly where we sit.
Yeah, very cool. How did you fund the down payment? What was the purchase price, and how did you guys fund the down payment?
It was 5.7, and we raised just over 2. We raised 2.2, and we raised that through limited partners. We went out and we formed some joint ventures, and then we brought some limited partners on board. So we're offering the limited partners 8% pref. So they're making a good return. Depending on exactly what metrics we hit, we're between a 12 and a 15 IRR. And these are very conservative. Like this is we're conservative because if this is the minimum of what we're going to do, then there's only upside. So this is kind of how the deal looks when nothing kind of pans out, right? And we were able to do that because of that discount we got up front, right? He was a 1031. He gave it to us at a lower cap because he wanted to, he knew we could close, and he wanted to take that money and put it somewhere else. Yeah. So that 1031 exchange that he was doing was kind of his motivation to sell, and how we were able to offer the returns that we could. Now, if we implement everything, if the market stays strong and comes back strong, if the tenants really like the office space as opposed to the storage space, because the office space is going to be a larger income stream than the storage space would be, then we can hit our numbers and we could be 9, 10, 11%. But we always like looking at the bottom line numbers of, listen, as long as we kind of make our nut, if things fall apart, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen next year, right? You said it yourself, the stimulus stopped. The elections are coming up. So what's the elections going to do to the market, to the economy, to what's going on in the country? How's all of that going to work into it? We don't know. But we do know that we can hit 60% occupancy, still make our nut. We know that in the worst case scenario is we're making 8%, right? So there's only kind of upside going forward without the floor completely falling out from under us. But again, that's why we're at that 60% break even, right? That's why we paid a 7 cap in a 6 to 6.25 cap market. So we have that cushion there.
Yeah, that's a great break-even occupancy percent. You know, if you can get to 65% and still break even, you know, that gives you a lot of wiggle room for stuff to go wrong. And, you know, what I'm getting for you as well is that old adage, right? Under promise and over deliver, right? You don't want to over promise and under deliver, right? You want to under promise and over deliver, so that especially dealing with investors, you want them to think, okay, I might get a 12 to 15% IRR. You guys have 18% IRR. Well, are they going to be ecstatic? They're going to be over the moon, right? Are they going to tell
they're going to come back?
Yeah, exactly. Until all their friends as well. You know, you guys need to invest in the deal. So I have a couple of quick last questions. One is, you know, we talked about at the start this not daycare. What is it? Is the kids' place that you have the?
Oh yes, it's a preschool.
Preschool. Sorry, there you go. How do you end up owning a preschool, and why did you end up owning a preschool? Because that's an interesting business model.
So we'll go back to retirement, right? I was a New York City fireman. The wife was a New York City school teacher. So when I retired, we moved from New York City, 8 million people, to a small town, 1,500. My entire zip code only has 15,000 people. So, I mean, I think there was 15,000 people that lived in my block back in the city.
Right.
So we changed gears. The wife didn't want to leave the education field. The community needed the service. So she married those two pieces up. So she runs the preschool. She's the director of the preschool. She runs all of that, and I do the real estate.
It's a nice mix. And you also said earlier on that you joined Jake and Gino, right? So are you part of their coaching program?
Yes. I can't say enough good things about Jake and Gino. Gino single-handedly has completely revolutionized how I do things, changed my mindset, and crushed every limiting belief I have. And it goes to proximity also, right? So through that coaching program, I then joined the mastermind. That mastermind was created from members of that program. That put me in proximity to different individuals. Once you're in the proximity around like-minded people and in that driven mode, you gain momentum. And now, before I joined the program, I kind of stumbled, right? I do internet searches and I would stumble upon what I was doing. Now, if I have a problem, I just pick up the phone. It's literally that easy. Like I pick up the phone and I call somebody because I've made so many connections within the community. I'm in proximity of people that are doing it, people that are ahead of me, people that have conquered the problem that I'm facing. I just pick up the phone and I make a phone call. And I mean, it sounds easy, but it really is that easy. Like, people are ahead of me and everybody's willing to help you. Nobody wants to see you fail.
There's a path, right? That's a great thing about real estate. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a proven path to success, right? You just follow that path and follow the people that have been successful, that are going to be successful, and you'll go along for the ride with them, right? You've just got to follow that path. As simple as that. A lot of times, it's just people don't maybe realize that,
That's the key to real estate in and of itself. Is real estate is one of the oldest things in the world, right? Like, we've always had real estate. So there's always been real estate transactions. So you don't need to reinvent what's going on. You need to find something that resonates with you and then just copy it and copy it and copy it. And that's where everybody always talks about value add, but value add allows you to refinance that property, right? It allows you to, we buy commercial properties because we could force the appreciation. That's why we buy commercial properties. Why? Because we could force the appreciation. What does that mean? It means I have control of that income stream. The property, your single family house, only the value of that is based upon your neighbor's selling price, right? If your neighbor decides that he wants to get out of the city because of the virus, he's going to sell his, which should be $500,000 house for $400,000. Well, the price of your house just came down. And I had, again, it's like owning stock. I have no control over that. My apartments, you can add value multiple different ways. Tenant retention is a value add if you're not going through those turnover costs, right? Adding those offices so that those tenants can now have a place to get out of their apartment and just have a fresh new environment to go to that's so close and so safe. Another value, another income stream. Those multifamily properties, I'm in control of the price of that. And once I can refinance that out, right? Year 3. So what we do is in year 3, I look to refinance it out. And if I can refinance all of my money out or most of my money out, that property is giving me an infinite return. And I'm using that same money to go on and do it again. My duplex, I'm going to refinance my duplex in the next coming months. I'm going to pull $100,000 out of that duplex, right? My payment's going to change $50. It's going to go up $50. And I'm going to have $100,000 in my pocket to go out and buy another property, to enter into another partnership, to build another product, to create another income stream. And as those income streams start coming in, I'm not worried about a virus happening, right? Like, because I have, if my preschool closed, right? So I keep going back to that, but that closed. That was an income stream. It stopped. One day I had it, the next day I didn't. Literally, 9 o'clock in the morning, I was open. 4 o'clock that afternoon, the state says, you're closed. So I lost that income stream. But I had other income streams that kept me afloat to get me through the hard time. So now I'm coming out on the other side. Now we're open again. The families are coming back. School's opening up. Things are rolling again. Now I have that income stream.
Yeah, very cool. That's the power of real estate, is to you know, some of the things that you said, you know, you refi 100,000 out. The beautiful thing about that is, as well, is that it's tax free. You're not paying any taxes on it, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas you sell, you're not paying any capital gains on that. And it's just, for anyone listening out there, you know, they've got to realize what the power of real estate, and it's just amazing what you can achieve. So I'm glad you shared that for people to be able to listen.
That's literally the power right there, right? You go to a tax sale, you go to a foreclosure, you go to an estate sale, right? These are all places that you go to get reduced priced properties because people are motivated. If a young couple, a young daughter and son, not a young couple, but a young daughter and son, their older parents pass away, they inherit the house, but now the house is in the Northeast, and one kid lives in Texas, the other kid lives in Florida. They don't want to have anything to do with that. And it's all found money for them. So you're going to come in, and you're not looking to hit them over the head, but you're looking to make a deal with them where they're making a good profit, but there's still meat on the bone, so that you can transition that house into a cash flowing property. The value of that house goes up. You now have equity built in. You draw that equity out, and you rinse and repeat. That's how that's the power of real estate. And the power is exactly what you said. Uncle Sam is truly your uncle in real estate. We haven't even touched on the tax benefits, but Uncle Sam's truly your uncle. He truly looks out for you. Depreciation, the write-offs of the income stream, the refinance and roll, right? The 1031 exchange. You could literally hand your kids millions of dollars in value of property and never have paid tax on it, because you just transitioned from a duplex to a quad to a 20 door to a 100 door over the course of time, right? And if you're 1031 in that 1031 allows you not to pay taxes on those gains right now. You pay taxes when you sell down the road. But if I don't sell my properties, right, and I just let them cash flow for me, and then I give them to my kids, now my kids, like, you built all of that net worth, and you built it all with Uncle Sam's money. It's better than a 401 where your employee is contributing, right? Or it's better than the 401 where you're tax deferred. You could build real worth here, and you could pass that worth onto your children. Rockefeller worth, if you're really smart about it and you start early enough.
Yeah. So this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate. There's a section I do at the end where I ask you wrestling-themed real estate questions. It's
all right, let's
really
go.
Easy. You got it. So the first one is, what would your wrestling name be? If you had to pick a wrestling name, what would it be?
Wow, cash flow.
Cash flow. Okay, I like it. Cash flow. So and every wrestler, they have a special move, right? So cash flow's in the ring. He has a special move in real estate. What is your special move? What is your strength in real estate, basically?
Wow. My strength in real estate's underwriting and adding value through on realized ways. And what I mean by that is that paying special attention to tenant base, right? Making sure that the tenant base is spread out over different occupations. Looking at property and creating office space, right? Or creating that storage, or saying the tenant base that I want to attract isn't gym people. They don't need a place to work out. They need office space, or they need, they would do better with a coffee bar, right? So the amenities, matching the amenities with the tenant base.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your real estate career? What's been the biggest setback?
Oof. The biggest setback. Wow.
Or what's something that's gone wrong?
This went wrong. It wasn't a setback for me, but I lost a deal, and it saved me. So I was about to buy a single family, and we went in, we looked at it, everything was good. We were about to buy it. A storm comes through, right? Just a regular old thunderstorm. But a tree comes down and literally like breaks the house in half. And this happened 2 weeks prior to closing. So if that would have happened right after closing, I would have been slammed. That was one of my first properties too. That's kind of, I haven't taken any real big hits. And I haven't because of my proximity. So I said my specialty is underwriting, right? But even though I'm really good at underwriting and I have my plan, I always send my plan out to someone else that's been doing it a hell of a lot longer than I have. And he just punches holes in it and he sends it back to me. And then I plug those holes. So I haven't taken a nasty hit myself, but I had a really good near miss.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. Was there a moment you were standing on the top rope, getting ready to jump, but you were scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it?
There's been too many times to count, honestly.
Yeah.
How did I overcome it? I overcame it with mindset. So I overcame it with building foundation meaning my education. I overcame it with building my network and being in the proximity of individuals that I could pick up the phone and make a phone call. And I overcame it with knowing that I can pivot. So know that you're going to buy a property, right? And something's going to go wrong with that property. You're going to have something go wrong. Whether that's the septic field goes bad, a tornado comes through and rips off all your roofs, a tree falls on it. The city comes in and says, the city ends up laying new sewer pipes, right? How about this? The city lays new sewer pipes and now you're forced to connect to the sewer. You're not allowed to have a septic field anymore. And it's $75,000 to connect to the sewer. So know that things are going to happen and that you have to pivot and be flexible enough to be able to pivot. So those are the ways that I've broken through that fear. Every deal that I look at is a fear. Every deal, I feel like I'm on the top rope looking down and holy cow, what am I doing? But we're entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs jump and then they build the parachute going down, right? So have confidence in yourself that you can do that and you can reach out to people and ask questions.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Neil, thank you so much for sharing all that information today. It's been a fantastic interview. I've really enjoyed our talk today. But before I go, where can people get a hold of you, and how can people find out more about what you're doing?
You can look me up on mfiholdings.com. That's the company I underwrite for. You can reach me at neil@bulmac.properties.com. So it's BULMAC properties.com. And just reach out to me. Like, that's, people have helped me. I'm always willing to help you guys. It's kind of the course of life, right? Like, you always pay it forward. You always give more in value than you receive, because it comes back to you tenfold. I'm always willing to help people. People have helped me get to where I am, so I'm always willing to help people with what they need.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Well, I'll put all the links to that in the description below. Thanks so much for taking the time today, man. I really appreciate it. That was such a fun talk. I really enjoyed that. The hour or whatever we spent has flown by. So thanks, man. I know you've got to be somewhere. I appreciate it.
I'm glad we can get together, Barry. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.